So if you're new to Illuvium, or even if you've been here for a while, it's really important that I refresh you on all the Illuvium tokenomics, how many tokens each person in the ecosystem holds, and what that means for you as an investor or a future investor into the projects, so that you have a better understanding of what could happen now in the future, and especially how Illuvium actually makes their revenue so they can keep costs up and keep the game running and the studio going, so they can produce lots of future games like we're all really hoping for as they realize their vision. And a lot of things have changed recently, especially in the past month or two, and we really need to cover some of this data to make sure that you understand what's going on. So let's first break down all of the tokens and where they are. At the end of this video, I will also have a whole series of charts to really help you understand what is going on. So the first one is here. We have a bunch of different wallets in the Illuvium ecosystem. We have the treasury, the tokens that are still being vested by things like seed and the team investors. So they are getting revenue distribution, but not locked. Those that are unlocking and haven't unlocked yet, mostly from the team here. The ILV single staked pool. So many of you have probably staked in the ILV pool, but pretty much all of those tokens are unlocked. So we can consider that for this. The SLP pool, which is similar. It's like a liquidity pool. You can stake to get revenue distribution rewards. The SILV2 that has been minted, and the circulating supply, which is basically all of that, 10 million minus all of those tokens. But let me quickly explain two things. Firstly, what is revenue distribution? And secondly, how can you benefit from it? And maybe third, what is SILV2? So basically, the Illuvium ecosystem has a very special mechanic called revenue distribution. And you get a proportional distribution of all of Illuvium's revenues, minus 5% for those who own land and produce fuel on their land. You get 95% of all the ecosystem's revenue, and it gets distributed to you based on how many tokens you own. So for example, if Illuvium earns $10 and you have 10% of the entire token supply staked in Illuvium, then you would get $1 from that $10. 10% of $10 is $1. It is really that simple. What's important to note here is Illuvium makes its revenue the exact same way. The Illuvium treasury, which as we just saw is 1.8 million tokens, earns them a share of that revenue, the exact same way people do. Now they do need that for things like capital raises, so it won't always stay that high, and it will get split up amongst some other large wallets or even amongst the community if they bring back the Forge, which will allow them to essentially capital raise with community members. But until then, that is how many tokens currently sit in the Illuvium treasury, which they will also be using for things like airdrops and Illuvium Arena rewards and things like that. And so the other thing is SILV2. Basically what that is those early stakers got the chance to claim rewards as SILV2. This was unlocked immediately and can be used within the Illuvium ecosystem at the same value as ILV, regardless of what SILV2 is trading at. Why that's important is because it essentially takes away revenue from the DAO up until the point where it's all burnt out of existence. It can only be used once and it gets burnt, and the equivalent in ILV supply cannot be minted if that SILV2 was minted. So it did make ILV somewhat deflationary, but it's pretty much all done now. Basically, everyone has claimed their rewards from the contract, and so no more SILV2 can effectively be made from this point. Maybe a tiny bit, obviously a tiny bit, but for the most part, pretty much none can. And so the next thing we need to look at, so right before we look at that, there is another project in the crypto gaming space that has some really similar mechanics to this, and that is the Lizard Labs ecosystem. You should check them out, and thanks to them for sponsoring this video. Anyone who knows me knows that I love the ETH Lizards and Lizard Labs, but what you might not know is they have evolved far beyond just an NFT project. They are now a gaming DAO that is building infrastructure, handing out alpha, and my personal favorite, allowing any individual to invest into new gaming projects on the ground floor. Jump into their Discord today to learn about the future of crypto gaming, as their token launch is right around the corner. And thanks again to Lizard Labs for sponsoring this video. Okay, so the SILV2, as I said, that essentially takes away future revenue from the DAO. And while they need it, right now they have about 10, 11 months of reduced burn a lot, 10 or 11 months of runway, although they do plan on raising capital early in the new year. But with that 10, 11 months of runway, the more revenue they generate, the more they can extend that out. But if everyone is spending using SILV2, then Illuvium gains nothing until it is burnt out of the ecosystem. So let's have a look at how that breaks down. I took a look here looking on chain onto the Immutascan protocol as well as the Etherscan protocol. And you can see right here, there is 161,000 SILV2 available, although that is not really telling you the whole picture. We know that 100,000 of those tokens are actually on the Immutable X bridge, and many of them are actually in the Uniswap pool. So there are not many tokens left. There is $190,000 of SILV2 in that liquidity pool, which for anyone who's familiar with this space is tiny. You're actually having a huge impact, so it's basically not tradable anymore. Anyone that has it is going to spend it at some point. Very hard to buy and sell. You can, but it's very hard to do so. And so when we get up to that point, we have this. 21% of the total supply has been burned through IMX sales. So this is Illuvium Beyond fuel sales and all that sort of stuff. While the fuel sales is 0.6%, Illuvium Beyond is 20%. Those unspent on IMX, so people hoarding SILV2 in their IMX wallets waiting for either the price of ILV to go up or whatever else, they have 1.4% of the supply, or 6,000 tokens. The amount that has been spent on Ethereum, which is effectively all on the land sale, there has been no other way to spend SILV2 on Ethereum that I can remember. Maybe something minor, but for the most part, just the land sale has been 290,000 tokens, and there are a total of 450,000 that have been minted. And the SILV2 unspent on the Ethereum network is 57,000 tokens. So the total amount of SILV2 unspent is 63,000 tokens based on a token price of around $60 for ILV. That is $3.7 million of SILV2 that has not been spent yet. As for the general breakdown, here is what we're looking at for the general token breakdown. The treasury has almost 20% of the total supply. Now, that doesn't mean it's getting 20% of RevDiz, and we'll get to that in just a second, but it has 20% of the total supply. The effective circulating supply, if we consider all of the tokens that people can unlock and put out into the market right now, mint, whatever it is going to be, if we consider all of that, there is about 7.2 million tokens available. And then you have the 1.8 million from the treasury, because the only tokens that are still locked is 470,000 tokens, or 4.7% of the supply. The circulating supply is basically fully diluted, unlike many of the new tokens coming out in recent times, coming out very, very soon. It is all basically diluted. Again, Lizard Labs did this really, really well. Xborg did this really, really well, and we can see how well it's done for their token price in the early days of those projects. But projects that have not done this, and they have like 10% of the supply is circulating and 9% is held by VCs and things, they are going to dump on you very, very fast. But Illuvium has finally gotten over that threshold of having that problem. And I'm not going to say the ILV token is going to go up or down or anything like that, but at least we know that only 4.7% of the supply is completely locked, okay? That means if those people really want to sell, they can't yet. Many probably have it in other contracts and things like that. They can sell at any time, and it does say volumes that they haven't sold up until this point. So really, really great news for the ILV ecosystem as a whole. What's in there is in there, great. And then there's the treasury breakdown. Basically, considering all of this data and all of these different stats, the treasury currently owns about 34% of the total token breakdown, whereas the other RevDiz elements are 66%. And people are slowly unstaking, especially out of the SLP pool. So this could actually go higher in the treasury's favor, meaning that for every $1 million of revenue, the treasury is getting about $330,000. Now, currently the burn rate, the target is 8,900K. I don't know if they're quite there yet, but it's 8,900K. But if Illuvium generates $1 million in revenue every single month, which I think is pretty good for a startup, and I think it's definitely achievable sometime in 2025, then they would be earning 330K. Now, it's not perfect. It's not going to absolutely keep them running forever. They will definitely capital raise at some point, but it's a really great start once you get to about $2 million per month, which heaps of protocols are doing really well, and most businesses and game studios and things achieve with their eyes closed. I mean, Palworld did it. They achieved what? Over $50 million probably. That's on the low end. Over $50 million. Palworld did that. Illuvium's not as good as Palworld yet. It has a lot of things that it needs to fix up, but it can definitely get there. And right now it's in a really primed position to start moving in that direction, which is very exciting. So here are some of the charts I promised you. We can see from the wallets that the treasury holds a pretty sizable chunk in the dark blue up the top here. We've got this circulating supply, which is really big chunk. That is tokens that haven't been taken out of their vesting contracts and things like that. SIV2 is a little chunk there with the Scion. SLP single side stake, both the stakes are about even to the treasury at this point, about 19%, treasury 18%. ILV unlockable and unlocking in May, June is that tiny yellow sliver right now is the tokens that have not been unlocked yet. So really great news for those who want to learn more about the Illuvium ecosystem. With SLV2, we could see that all the burn tokens are basically everything except for the orange and the yellow. The yellow's tiny, we don't even care about that, but the orange is basically all the SLV2 that is left out of everything that has existed, which is a very small chunk. So really great to see that there. The general breakdown is that 4.5% of the tokens are burned, about the same amount is still locked. The treasury has that 20%, so you can't really expect them to hit the market or anything like that. And the effective circulating is that giant red slice. So really good for the health of Illuvium and the DAO in general. And the revd is the treasury is getting that blue chunk there out of all of the revenue distribution that is going out, which is really great to see as well. So if you learned something new, if you understand better the Illuvium tokenomics, please leave a like down below. I really appreciate it. Subscribe if you want to learn more. Leave a comment down below if I missed anything and you want to learn more about a different aspect of Illuvium too, because I would really love to see that. So have a good one, guys.